Imagine you are flying high above the vast, dark expanse of the Atlantic Ocean. You are comfortably settled in your seat, perhaps watching a movie or dozing off, surrounded by the familiar, steady drone of the jet engines. Suddenly, a strange quiet descends upon the cabin. The powerful roar that has been your constant companion for hours fades away, replaced by an eerie silence. This is not a scene from a disaster movie, it is a real situation that has happened. It is the moment when an airplane's engines, the very heart of its power, stop working mid-flight. For the passengers and crew, it is a moment of profound uncertainty, a true test of nerves and skill, thousands of feet above the nearest safe landing spot. This scenario is every flyer's unspoken fear, a dramatic what-if that plays out in our minds. We associate the engines with flight itself, believing that without their constant thrust, a plane must surely fall from the sky. But modern aviation is filled with incredible stories of survival that challenge this assumption. The truth is, a commercial airliner is not like a stone. It is a masterfully designed gliding machine. When its engines go quiet, it does not simply drop. Instead, it transforms into a very large, very heavy but surprisingly graceful glider. The pilots are still in full control, and their training prepares them for this exact, albeit rare, emergency. The idea of a massive metal tube weighing hundreds of tons flying without any power seems impossible. Yet the principles at play are the same ones you might have experimented with as a child. The shape of the aircraft, particularly its long, carefully sculpted wings, is the secret to its hidden ability to soar. These wings are designed to interact with the air, to slice through it, and generate a force called lift. This lift is what keeps the airplane aloft, and it does not disappear the moment the engines fail. The forward motion of the plane, even without engine thrust, is enough to keep air flowing over the wings, allowing the pilots to maintain control and navigate towards safety. This remarkable capability is a testament to the incredible engineering and redundant safety systems built into every modern aircraft. The pilots are highly trained professionals who practice for such events in sophisticated simulators. They know how to manage the aircraft's energy, trading altitude for distance, much like a cyclist coasting down a long hill. The silence in the cockpit is not one of panic, but of intense focus. The crew works together, following precise procedures to handle the emergency, communicate with air traffic control, and guide their silent aircraft to a safe haven, turning a potential catastrophe into a story of incredible skill and resilience. Think about the last time you folded a piece of paper into an airplane. You did not attach a tiny motor or a propeller to it. You simply gave it a good, firm push, and it sailed across the room. Your simple paper creation flew because of its shape. The flat surfaces of its wings cut through the air, creating a difference in pressure that generated lift and allowed it to glide. Your arm provided the initial thrust, but once it left your hand, it was the wings and the airflow over them that did all the work. A commercial jetliner, despite its immense size and complexity, operates on this very same fundamental principle. It is, in essence, a giant, incredibly sophisticated paper plane. The magic is all in the shape of the wing, an airfoil. If you look at a wing from the side, you will notice it has a specific curved shape. It is flatter on the bottom and more curved on the top. As the plane moves forward, air splits to travel over and under the wing. The air traveling over the curved top surface has to move faster than the air moving along the flatter bottom surface. According to a scientific principle discovered by Daniel Bernoulli, faster moving air has lower pressure. This creates a pressure difference. Higher pressure below the wing pushes up, while lower pressure above the wing pulls up. This combined effect is lift, the force that overcomes gravity and keeps the plane flying. So, what happens when the engines stop? The engines are primarily there to provide thrust, the powerful forward push that gets the plane moving and keeps it at a high speed. Without that thrust, the airplane will naturally start to slow down. However, it does not stop flying. Instead, the pilots will point the nose of the aircraft slightly downward. By doing this, they use gravity as a substitute for engine thrust. The plane begins a long, controlled descent, or glide. This gentle downward angle ensures that air continues to flow over the wings at a sufficient speed to generate the lift needed to stay airborne and maintain control. This is why an airplane is often described as being on the edge of a hill throughout its flight. At cruising altitude, it possesses a massive amount of potential energy due to its height. When the engines fail, that potential energy is converted into kinetic energy, the energy of motion. The pilots carefully manage this conversion, trading altitude for airspeed and distance. they can glide for a surprisingly long time. For every mile of altitude they lose, a typical airliner can glide forward for about 15 miles. This gives them a wide radius of potential landing sites and precious time to prepare for a safe landing, all without a single engine running. One of the most dramatic real-world examples of this principle in action occurred on August 24, 2001. Air Transat Flight 236, an Airbus A330, was en route from Toronto, Canada, to Lisbon, Portugal, with 306 people on board. While flying high over the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, the unthinkable happened. Due to a fuel leak, the aircraft ran out of fuel. First, the right engine flamed out. A few tense minutes later, the left engine also went silent. The massive jet, now more than 30,000 feet in the air and over 100 miles from land, had become a glider. The steady hum of the engines was replaced by a disquieting silence, broken only by the sound of the wind rushing past the fuselage. In the cockpit, Captain Robert Peach and First Officer Dirk de Jager faced an immense challenge. They had a powerless aircraft and were far from any airport. Their training immediately kicked in. They knew they had to maintain the aircraft's best glide speed to maximize the distance they could travel. With no engine power, many of the plane's hydraulic and electrical systems were lost. However, the designers of the Airbus A330 had planned for this. A small propeller-driven generator called a ram air turbine, or RAT, automatically deployed from the belly of the plane. The wind spinning its blades provided essential power for the critical flight controls, allowing the pilots to continue flying the aircraft. Captain Peach, an experienced glider pilot, used his skills to guide the silent A330. He and his first officer calculated their glide path and identified a possible landing spot, Laias Air Base, a military airfield in the Azores Islands. The challenge was immense. They had to navigate precisely without the help of many of their primary instruments and manage their descent perfectly to arrive over the runway with just the right amount of altitude. They could not afford to come in too high or too low. There would be no second chances, no opportunity to go around for another try. The fate of everyone on board rested on their calculations and handling of the aircraft. Incredibly, after gliding for approximately 19 minutes and covering a distance of about 75 miles without any engine power, Captain Peach and First Officer de Jager lined up the giant aircraft with the runway at Laias. The landing was hard and some of the tires burst upon touchdown, but it was successful. Every single one of the 306 passengers and crew members walked away from the aircraft safely. The event became known as the Air Transat Miracle, a powerful testament not only to the skill of the pilots, but also to the remarkable aerodynamic design of modern airliners, which are built to fly even when their engines will not. The incredible success of the Air Transat glide highlights a crucial concept in aviation. Altitude is your friend. When an emergency like a dual engine failure occurs at a high cruising altitude, pilots have a significant advantage. That advantage is time and options. From 35,000 feet, an aircraft has a vast amount of potential energy. As it glides downwards, this altitude is slowly exchanged for distance across the ground. This gives the flight crew precious minutes to work through their emergency checklists, attempt to restart the engines, configure the aircraft for a powerless landing, and communicate with air traffic controllers to find the nearest and most suitable airport. The higher you are, the larger your gliding range and the more choices you have. Now contrast this with an engine failure that happens shortly after takeoff. This is a far more critical and dangerous situation. When a plane is taking off, it is low to the ground, flying relatively slowly and climbing steeply. It has very little surplus altitude or energy. If an engine fails at this point, the pilots have only seconds to react. They have minimal altitude to trade for airspeed, and their options for a landing site are severely limited. It is often just the runway they just departed from or a nearby airport. Their focus is singular. Maintain control of the aircraft and fly it to the safest possible conclusion, with no time for leisurely gliding. This is why pilots train so relentlessly for engine failures during the takeoff and initial climb phases. It is considered one of the most demanding emergencies they can face. The procedures are memorized and practiced over and over in simulators until they become second nature. The key is to immediately counteract the asymmetrical thrust from the remaining engine and maintain a safe flying speed to avoid a stall. While still incredibly rare, an engine failure at low altitude requires immediate and precise action, leaving absolutely no room for error. The successful handling of such events is a direct result of rigorous training and the powerful performance of the aircraft's remaining engine. Ultimately, whether at 30,000 feet or 300 feet, the design of an airplane is rooted in safety and redundancy. The story of Air Transat 236 is not just a miracle. It is a demonstration of this design philosophy in action. Aircraft are built to be inherently stable gliders. Pilots are trained to be calm and proficient problem solvers. From the shape of the wings that provide lift to the emergency ram air turbine that provides essential power, every component is part of a system designed to protect the people on board. So, the next time you hear the engines roar to life, you can be confident that even if they were to fall silent, the wings are always ready to carry you safely on the air.